What's that?
Susan B. Anthony? Do we have a
Susan?
Susan? Do we have a Susan B. Anthony?
Got her on some coins.
You said that almost in a Bueller. Do we have a Susan B. Anthony?
Guys, I don't think that I charged enough for my truck. I just looked at Marketplace, and while we've been sitting here, 9 more people are messaging me saying they want it. I think I should ask more for it.
Oh.
Too late.
First one out of the gate, Liz. Sup, bitches. What's up, Liz? Kathy made it back. Veronica, hey. And Susan Doyle did it. She made it. She didn't get lost in the streams.
I'm really hoping my phone makes it.
Mandu's first time. Is that right, Mandu? First time live?
Yeah,
I think I saw that way earlier ago.
Yeah.
Mama,
you guys did great.
Everybody. Josh had some good notes about the weapon thing, but we've moved on from that. We can't get into that. It's 5:07. We're gonna move on.
Yeah, but I was wondering, but we got to the real intense story about the dog in lost track of the chat. I was wondering if Josh had some thoughts. When I get a second.
Yeah, he did.
You know,
orderized.
You just tell Beachy to mind his own damn business.
Okay. Which one of us needs to do that?
I just did.
Because I think you just
Josh.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh is a friend of mine. I'm allowed to say that.
Ashley,
I can't even get the chat open. So there we go.
Just, make us look. Sorry, I'm seeing what Josh did to see how it fits with my conspiracy theory. Oh, so if this is true, if that's true, then maybe I could buy it. That wasn't what I heard yesterday. If that's the case, no conspiracy theories for me. Everything's fine.
Okay. It can happen that fast. It can happen that fast.
Mm-hmm. See, Susan, the trick is you make payments to yourself for years and years and years instead of to the bank. That's how you do it. And you buy a truck every 8 years.
Josh, I think I was in your neck of the woods.
You were down by Delphi, right?
Yeah, I was down by Delphi. We were like the next town over. There was people from Delphi there because we talked to them.
Oh, from the town of Delphi.
Yep, it was a good time. It was fun. It was a strange time. Not that anybody cares, but the promoter told me it had to be PG-13, and the bar owner said anything goes. And so I started off PG-13, and then when I gave up on that is when everybody had a good time.
Great.
Oh, was the promoter upset?
No, I don't care what the promoter is an extra person. Like the promoter is somebody that like contacted the bar to set all this up, kind of like I do for Lake Time.
Yeah.
And they had the stipulation that it was PG-13.
Got it.
The bar did not.
Got it.
And the people at the bar did not want PG-13. It was a bar. They wanted bar humor. So as soon as I started telling dick jokes in the cornfield, we were good.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Right.
All righty. So I think that we ready to end the pregame and get started on the big show?
Yeah, I'm really hoping my phone makes it.
I hope your phone makes it too.
If not, I'm gonna have to figure some things out.
Just want to verify because there's one of the questions that was something I needed to get from Nikki, so I texted her and got that answer. Okay.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Okay. Patrons, we love you guys so much. We appreciate you, and we're gonna end this pregame, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye, pregamers.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
So dumb. All right. Are we ready to record?
I am.
Hold on. I gotta push the button.
Okay. I'm gonna
push the button. Push the button.
I'm recording. Is that too soon?
I pushed the button.
Okay.
I pushed the button.
Rolling.
I already pushed the button.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. All right.
Ahoy, friends. Thank you for tuning into Truth and Justice. You are listening to the Friday Follow-Up for Season 17, Episode 11. This week we got to hear from Chris Bynum. This week we got to hear Chris Bynum's first police statement. We also heard a police statement from DeAndre McIntosh, better known as Shaky. This episode has raised a lot of listener questions, and I have some of my own. Today I'm joined by Bob and Janet, and the three of us are going to do our best to get through all of your listener questions. But before we go into that, do we have any housekeeping?
I don't think we have anything pressing for housekeeping going on this week. We're just I'll keep you guys updated as soon as we know anything new, but there's always, there's things moving in all of our cases kind of right now that we're waiting for. Janet, you look like you had something on the tip of your tongue.
Well, it's not something we have to talk about now, but I did want to acknowledge that the part 5 of the case against Adnan Syed did come out on HBO. So if some people might have watched it, but again, we don't need to, we're on to a brand new case, but
I haven't had a chance to watch it. Have you watched it yet?
Yes, I did. It was mostly, I mean, from my memory, it was mostly stuff that if you've been following the case closely, you already
knew about it.
Yeah. But it was really good to see,
well, that's what I heard.
See, like some of the people and
I heard the kind of what I saw online, people posting about it. There was a lot of conversation about how much they loved seeing like Adnan himself being out free and with his dad and stuff like that. So I'm excited to watch it. I just haven't had a minute.
Oh my God, he's so funny and cute with his dad. He's like, this is so surreal. My dad's wearing a Freddy Krueger sweater. It's very sweet, and you get attached to people. Like I really love Adnan's mom. I think of her as my Auntie Shabim, and I've never met her, so she's just very sweet. It was nice.
That's great. Well, I can't wait to watch it too. It's been bookmarked for me. I haven't watched anything else on TV since then either. But that's one of the next things on my list. Cool. And with that being said, so it's been a long time coming in this season to get to Chris's confession. So you guys finally got to hear it. I read it to you guys word for word, and you got to hear what happened next. What were you guys' initial takeaways before we get into questions?
So for me, it reminded me a lot of the Jennifer Jeffley case, where there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot going on, and I feel like somebody knows something so much more than what's being given. Now, that doesn't mean it's true, but just all these statements, in Chris's statement, they talk about the 3 individuals that are named we don't know if they're brought in, we don't know anything, right? But these are the 3 individuals that are named. And then later we find out that one of these individuals was brought in, and he names the same 3 individuals. It's weird that they have this almost the same story, even though they're pointing fingers at each other. So I feel like there's so much more there that we just aren't privy to yet.
Right. Well, I don't think Shaky mentioned Terrell. I don't think Terrell was part of Shaky's statement, unless I'm completely misremembering that.
And maybe I misremembered it, but for some reason I thought he was included later.
No, I think his was that they had the argument at the bar. He said Chris pulled a gun on him. Then they went to Amp's house. Doesn't really say, I think, why they went to Amp's house. Amp and Chris had an argument, and then Chris drops him off, and then that's it. That's the last he saw of him.
Okay. I don't know. There's still something there to me that just seems so strange. And I'm just a listener. I'm not privy to everything. That's just what I'm hearing. But it just reminded me a lot of that, of that idea that like there's too many stories that kind of coincide.
Right.
And we still don't know what the story is yet. So I don't know. There's something there to me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I got some thoughts on that, but I want to hear Janet's thoughts first.
Yeah, I mean, this is still kind of part of the challenge of rolling out the case, and you're doing it right. I mean, I'm not suggesting that you should do it otherwise. But again, I feel like I've been saying this. I'm like a boring, broken record many of these weeks, which is that every piece makes me want more pieces.
Right.
At no time am I ever like, okay, I think I've got the picture now. It just doesn't work that way. So, I mean, I agree with Zach in that we're not coming into this first statement cold. We have a lot of information. We certainly have enough information to your point that you make very clear in the episode that the order is wrong of how the murders took place.
Yeah.
That's a huge problem. We of course know about Larry and the baby, and we know that neither one of them are a 5-year-old. So yes, we do have pieces that like stand out, but we also don't. There's just stuff that we don't know, to where I agree with Zach. Like, I don't know. And part of it is, I'm sure, because of whatever conversation is happening that changes the times of the transcripts to suddenly be several hours or a couple hours instead of, a few minutes. how he would know what he knows. So if I were coming in totally blind, I would be like, well, it sounds like he was involved. In the same way that if you listen to Jay's first statement, you'd be like, oh, well, clearly this is true. Some part of it's got to be true. It can't have come from nothing, right? He knew too much or whatever. So I think that's a huge feeling of a blind spot, is that huge blind spot of how would he know to even tell this version of the story if we don't know, like, we just don't know what that conversation was before they quote unquote recorded it or transcribed it or whatever we're calling it.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Zach.
Well, what I was going to say too is, like, before you even get to the murder, like the stuff at the VFW seems there was clearly an incident, in my opinion. They both tell almost the same story, just like kind of opposing each other, but there was clearly an incident at the VFW that I feel is true. Now the rest of the story I don't know about, but something happened there for sure.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. So you remember me saying a while back that we know that Chris wasn't riding around with Liz because we know where he was at.
Yeah.
Your instincts are right. Like there are many witnesses that said that those two were together at the VFW that night, and there was an argument.
And did anyone say anything about a gun?
We'll get into that. Well, I guess I can tell you now. We're gonna get into it in more in depth later, but yeah. So it's essentially what the witnesses have said later is the version Shaky told was true, but it was accurate, but it was flipped. Oh. So like they are all saying that Shaky pulled a gun on Chris, is what all these witnesses say, but Shaky says Chris pulled a gun on him.
Interesting.
But your instincts about that part of the story, and it's a really good example of like when I'm doing a statement analysis, and this one is super difficult to do a statement analysis on. That's why I just read it, because it's not a statement, it's not a transcript. It looks like a transcript, but it's like a Q&A style statement typed up. It's super weird the way, but it looks like a transcript, like everybody said things this way, right? So and there's so many different things that like feed into it when you look at a transcript or a statement transcript, whatever it is, that's 12 pages long, and you can see the timestamps that it took 2 hours to get there. It's like I don't know what to pull out of this. But one thing that that I'm always looking for is like that, like where's their consistency, and where's there something that is, if there's something that's like kind of innocuous that come together, like if the cops are trying to, let's say this is complete police coercion, they're telling them what to say to give this story, right? They're focused on what happened at the crime scene, who was pulling the trigger, who had the gun. But then I don't see them being, well, let's create this argument at a pool hall before all of this happened, that was settled before any of it happened. So I had the same feeling from that. Like I had the advantage of already knowing that part was somewhat true.
Okay.
But it's those types of things that we're looking for. It's like, okay, so that I think there probably was some kind of an incident at the pool hall, because why would that be a part of the story otherwise? It doesn't help. It doesn't push things. There's no utility in it. It doesn't push the things forward other than when Shaky says that Chris had a gun. Also,
this is the dumbest thing that really probably doesn't matter, but it's so confusing to me. So it's been called the VFW, which a VFW in my realm is essentially a legion.
It's a veteran of foreign wars. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's essentially like a legion. But you've also called it a pool hall, and they also called it a club. So yeah, I feel like none of those are the same thing in my world.
So they are. So the VFW halls are generally like they're bars. Similar to a legion, right? Now the legion in the town you live in is more of a party hall. There is a bar there, but people rent it out for a big party hall. But in most places, VFWs in the Midwest are just, so for anybody that doesn't know, it's a good point, Zach, for bringing it up. They're basically bars. And so, yeah, it was a VFW, but they kind of considered it the club that they go to, and they play pool there. I probably shouldn't have said pool. It was not a pool hall. I think there was just a pool table at the bar.
Okay, because it just seemed, I mean, again, I'm just basing it on my experience of what I've seen. it just doesn't feel like, if you're saying a club, I'm thinking a club, like a dance club, something along those lines. So
well,
it's a
and a
little
lot
different
of
for
times
me.
I call them a club too, because you have to be a member to get into them usually.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so like the same thing with like a Legion, like to be a member of the VFW, you had to, generally speaking, you had to have served in the military in a foreign war, or be the relative of someone that did. I think there's a thing where they can sponsor people, but then there's some of them are different. Some places are like, just sign in, we'll let anybody in. Other places are real strict about it. Like if you're not a member and you're not paying dues, you can't come in, and it's real restrictive. It doesn't sound like this one was, because neither one of them fought in a foreign war. Maybe they have little relatives that did, but
Okay.
but and then kind of getting back to what Janet said, this is as far as like the approach to this. That was the reason when I first looked at this, I read through these statements a long time ago, and I was like, a lot of times we've had other cases with false confessions, and it's always a hurdle. I didn't see this one as being much of a hurdle at all. It wasn't any hurdle at all for me when I read them to think, oh, I think he's guilty because he confessed, because I knew enough case facts to know that this statement was complete nonsense. So that's kind of why I took the approach, is like, well, let's lay out the details of the crimes and the crime scenes first, because I wanted you guys to have the knowledge of what actually happened, even though we don't know the specifics of the who and exactly the how, but we know the basics of what went down at these crime scenes. We know there was an 18-month-old child there. We know the order people were killed in. We know that there was snow on the ground. We know all these different things about the case. So I wanted you guys to have like a picture of what did the actual crime scene look like before you hear this version of the story that gets told.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, the next kind of comment that I would have is very much also a listener comment. So I would launch into that, if you are okay with it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So Becky says, having trouble understanding why both of these men were willing to place themselves at the scene, but telling different versions of what happened. Then the fact that they both included Liz and another woman seems coincidental. Were they being told by investigators each other's version, or just that they had been implicated by a tip prior to their interviews? Were investigators already working on the assumption both crime scenes were connected by the time they were interviewed? So a lot of stuff to unpack there with Becky's comment.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff we can't know. I can't know if the investigators had already. It seems like they definitely connected the scenes, whether they thought they were connected, knew they were connected, or just decided to connect them at that point. My conclusion is that I think most likely they are connected. But as far as there's no way of knowing. In this week's episode and Sunday, you're going to hear Chris's explanation as to how this went down. He testified in a post-conviction relief hearing years later, where he actually explained what happened throughout that day. So I don't want to get into too much of that now.
His
and again,
actual day, you're saying,
yeah,
or this day where he's suddenly making this statement that he was there.
The day when he was brought by police, like what happened?
Okay.
Because he was brought in like in the morning, like sometime between 10 in the morning and noon, and he doesn't start giving the statement until 9 p.m. and it goes till 11 p.m. He's there for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. So it's hard to know that the story given, because this is what was perplexing about the whole thing as well. To me, when I read Chris's statement, that reads to me as somebody that has no clue what happened, that's throwing in some details, right? But so then, if the story is being provided by the police, you would think they would want it to match, to fit with the evidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
So that gets confusing as to why that is. But then that's why, and you kind of astutely picked up on this last week, Janet, the Amanda Knox story. Think about how that one went down, and you can start to get an idea where this thing is going. But Amanda gets interrogated hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, until eventually she gives them a story where she puts herself at the crime scene, but not as being the killer. And then once she does that, then it's like, okay, that's good enough. They're willing to accept that, and then later push forward with prosecuting her on it. And the reason for that is once you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So if they can get you, it's, in a full normal recorded interview, that's kind of part of what the read technique is doing, right? Is it's trying to like lead you into a place. It's death by 1,000 cuts. We've talked about this a bunch of times. If you haven't listened, in season 16, we did a whole long series about the read technique. And we had Amanda Knox on, but it's like just getting you closer and closer and closer until they can get you to a point of no return, which that point of no return is usually put yourself there, get you on the scene. Once you said you were there when the murder happened, now you can't get away from it. Now your next statement doesn't get to be, well, I was just kidding, I wasn't there. Right. So now you have to start explaining, when they present you with new, different evidence. Okay, well, the story you told me is provably false, but you already told me you were there. So now what happened? Right. So I think it could be something like that, where they're just, trying to get him to put it, to say whatever they want, something that's somewhat remotely close that puts him on the crime scene, and this accomplished that.
Okay, that actually begs a question that I need to be refreshed on, and that's not in here, and anything that anybody posted, but does he make additional statements that then further tie him to the ball field? Because in this first statement, they don't have anything they could use to charge him with those murders.
Right. Well, in this first statement, he basically said he was a witness to the murder.
Right. But I mean, he's put himself at the location of the house murders.
Right.
But he says, I do not know what happened. I was not a part of the second thing at all. So I guess I'm just wondering, I'm going to be very curious to find out, like, if he was charged for all 5 of these homicides, how then he was connected to those.
So if you remember way back, I told you he made 2 statements. So you heard the first one today.
Okay.
So that one was Friday night the 18th. And then Saturday the 19th is when Shaky came in and gave the statement that you heard.
Oh, and then he goes back in.
And then on Sunday the 20th, Chris went back in and gave another statement.
Oof, okay.
Well, the thing that I am wondering, I don't know if there's listener questions, so I'm sorry, but is if Chris really did know the victims, because he does appear to know the victims in this. He even talks about Liz and how she was a sex worker. Things that, like, it didn't seem like information that was provided to me. Maybe it was, but it did seem like Chris possibly knows these victims.
No, I don't know. I mean, it seems like he knew Amp.
Yeah.
I don't get the impression that he knew Liz. Like, even in this statement, which, the statement is riddled with lies, provable lies. The story is not true, but even in that, it's still just like, oh, I just know her because I've seen her walking around the neighborhood. And if you notice when you read it, it's like inching him a little closer to that too. Like, oh no, I've just seen her walking around the neighborhood. Okay. I know she was a sex worker. And then it's like, oh, I know her name's Liz. Like, they just kind of keep inching him a little bit closer to it. I don't think he knew Liz at all. I think there's a possibility that he knew Amp, but I think that's it.
Who said, which was it, Shaky or Chris, who said that Liz had their pager number?
I don't remember. I think
it was Chris, but I could be wrong. Because I remember being surprised. I was like, oh, wait, now you're saying that she had your pager number, but you've said before that you were never formally introduced and you did never, and that she asked you about, like, if they're scoring weed. Like,
yeah,
like
now
that's
that you say that,
yeah.
Because that was, you're right. I was thinking that was Shaky, but I think that was Chris. But that was part of that, what I'm talking about, right? So in one part of his statement, it's just, it starts off, oh, I just know who she is. I've seen her around. I've seen her walking around. And then it's, I know her name's Liz. And then it's, she paged me, right? So that like within the statement, we make that arc from, I don't know her at all, to she was paging me to get weed from her.
So I don't think he said that. I mean, maybe he says that in the next statement. I don't think he connects her having the pager number to her paging him or her looking for weed with the pager. I think he says he ran into her and she was asking him if he knew where to get weed, and he said, no, I don't think so. I think it's really dry. It being used as a way of describing that there isn't any around really to be bought. And then I think separately they asked, did she have your phone number? And he said, she had my pager number, but I don't remember those two things being connected either. I don't remember the thing being connected, like the reason that she has my pager is she pager, or you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't remember those two things being connected.
Yeah. And I'm not sure.
Anyway.
I'll have to reread it, because especially I'm these episodes are always tricky for me too, because I just finished recording the one about the next statement. So I'm like, what was that I just read and what was from the last one?
Of course.
But yeah, I'll have to double check on that.
Okay. So let's look at Anne's comment. If the fact that Chris first came on the radar based on an anonymous tip was not in the probable cause affidavit for his arrest, what was it based on? Is there a copy of it in the file? I can't imagine what other evidence the police would have that would give them probable cause to arrest him.
The probable cause to arrest him was his confession.
Yeah. So they brought him in to question him, and that was and he gave them their probable cause.
Yeah, and they're able to say Larry said that it was a guy named Chris that was there, and he recognized the voice, and Willie said that there was a Chris there, and then Chris came in, and then you have Shaky's statement, and then you have Chris's confession.
Yeah.
And when you have a confession, it doesn't, you don't need much more probable cause than that to get a judge to sign off on it.
Oh, of course, I'm sure. That's one of the main problems, right? Is like, if we can just get a confession, we don't have to present any other information to the judge at all to back up the confession.
Exactly.
We just need to do that. That we can do from the comfort of our own police department. We don't even have to do any shoe leather stuff.
No investigating.
Just one person instead of all the people. Okay. Tony says, could Chris have heard rumors of a baby being in the room and then told by police about a child witness, and possibly even that child identifying him, and then conflated the two into thinking he was supposed to say there was a 5-year-old baby there, or a 5-year-old kid there?
I mean, this is speculation, but my thought on that is that it probably wasn't a rumor. I think he was probably told that by Detective Donald. I think that was the detective that was the main one, which you'll learn on Sunday, that was handling most of this before Moxley came into the room. I think that I think he was probably told there was a child there. There was a baby, and I think he got confused. But then the other part of that is, though, well, God, again, I'm trying not to jump too ahead into next week, but so let me just throw this at you as a thought. If you got one cop that's sitting in the room with you for hours and hours and hours, that's manipulating you into giving this statement, then when it's time to give the statement, you bring in another cop, two more cops actually, one to type and one to be there. Moxley being the one that's coming in for as part of the questioning. So he's in there with Donald. Then Moxley comes in and Galt's typing the statement. That, I think, could explain why there's screw ups like that don't get fixed, as opposed to let's say, like, and again, this is speculation on my part, theory based on, I think, some pretty decent amount of evidence. But so when you have like Jay Wilds and you got Ritz and McGillivray are on the same page, they're on the same team, they're both doing the same thing, they're working together to make this thing happen. But imagine how that might have been worked out differently if, say, Ritz was in the room with Jay and workshopped this whole story and then said, hey, McGillivray, come in here with us and we're going to make this statement. You can only go so far with correcting him when there's a cop that maybe isn't fully on board with this whole mess, right?
Okay.
So
Interesting.
I think that it could be something like that. And again, you'll get a little bit more about that on Sunday.
Okay. Wow. All right. That's very interesting. Carl K says, regarding the part of the statement where Chris says Chris, in quotes, likely referring to somebody else, I assume that he would know who that Chris is and either has or should/will be investigated. Do we know if that is correct, that he knows another Chris with a relationship to the victims? I mean, I guess my only addendum to that would be that it becomes confusing because Chris then owns that he's talking about himself in the fabric of this confusing statement.
Yeah. And because of that piece of it that you just pointed out, Janet, is why I think that he was reading off notes. Because they're like, so who did this? Chris. And then it's like, who's when you say Chris, you mean you? Oh yeah, I meant me. Like that. Yeah. So I didn't get the impression that he was like talking about it was a different Chris. I think he just somehow knew he was supposed to say that Chris was the one that did that, not realize that he's
Yeah,
well, it could be a
really
little
strange.
of both. It could be a little of both because, if you're used to running in circles where you know other people with your name, you don't read it the same way that someone like, for example, me. I very rarely meet a Janet. Very, very rarely.
Yeah.
And when I do, I make a big deal about it, like it's something really important, and I get super excited. So if I were in a situation like that and I was looking at someone's notes and I saw that so-and-so Janet such and such, like that would stop me in my tracks. I would know that was me. But if it's only enhanced that he could make that mistake if he maybe does know a Chris or two that maybe could also know Shaky or whatever, and there's no room for that Chris, right, in this statement. There's no room for that anymore.
Right.
But in his mind, in his reality, there is room for it. So it could kind of be both. You know what I mean? Like, it's not necessarily that he is specifically thinking of a very specific Chris, but it also doesn't necessarily mean that he is just reading a note and you know what I'm saying? Like, that it doesn't have to be as directly connected to him. It could be more nebulous than that.
This kind of goes back to our pregame conversation about the conspiracy theories. I can't tell you what did happen, but I can tell you what I think didn't happen. In this case, I think that it's highly unlikely that he was just talking truthfully about himself being there.
A hard agree.
It certainly would not
100%.
have sounded like that if they're like,
no.
Who did that? I did.
Yeah.
It wasn't that.
Oh yeah, no.
So
that's such a strange, it's such a strange moment. Such a strange moment in this, I was going to say script. That's not good. But it kind of feels like it.
Well, right. If you're just retelling the story, I mean, he's trying to retell the story from memory, which is what you expect. So he wouldn't go, oh yeah, it was Chris. Like, who talks in third person? Not, I don't know if it actually talks in third person. You know what I mean? Like, it seems very strange to me.
Yeah. Like me saying, well, Bob is recording a podcast right now.
Weird.
Right.
No.
Right. They're not supposed to be reading at this point. This is supposed to be off the top of his head statement.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I'm glad that you mentioned that because that kind of ties into this from Jennifer, who says, I can't get over a cop typing these interviews verbatim live. We've seen scribbles from other detectives, and there's a reason shorthand and stenography exist. Do we know how long Chris's pre-interview time was? And then I've got another question from Jennifer, but we'll stop there for now because you just mentioned to us, and I'm not sure. Did you tell us on the episode that he was there for hours and hours and hours?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Okay.
No, and that gets revealed on Sunday, but I also already revealed it in this one because I forgot which episode was which. But yeah, so he was in custody for over 9 hours, I think is fair to say, before this statement was given.
And I feel like that's kind of an acknowledged red flag in wrongful convictions when we're talking about false
and also remember
right?
what Dr. Jackson told us a couple of weeks ago, that Shanita, his fiance, said she spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours at the police station. That kind of gets confirmed by Chris in Sunday's episode, this coming Sunday's episode, that, so those two things fit as far as when he got picked up and when the statement started, and then her saying, I was locked up for all day, hours and hours and hours all day long. So that those two things fit together.
Yeah. And then next question from Jennifer is, when did Dr. Jackson start working on this case? And then I guess there's a couple more questions from Jennifer. I'm realizing that they're not really that connected to each other, so I'll save the next one for after you answer this.
Yeah, 2021. I asked Nikki before we came on the air today.
Okay. This is again, Jennifer, has Chris's fiance stood by him all this time, and do you have plans to talk to her?
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to talk to her or not. I haven't reached out to her, but she is on my list. I haven't got to a point yet where I'm ready to start interviewing people about it. She will be one of the ones on the list if she's willing to talk. Depends what you mean by stood by. She has always stood by the fact that Chris is innocent. But she's not. I think they were. I believe they were splitting up or something. Was like even about this time when this happened. They weren't necessarily together anymore, or they were in the process of breaking up. But she's not stood by him like Kim Aites was standing by Ed, where like waiting for him to come home to she's moved on with her life.
Yeah.
But
I mean, he was 21. They're kids.
Yeah, but as far as stood by him, as far as like has always believed and has pronounced that he is innocent, yes, she has always stood by him in that way.
Yeah, and that's what matters. Okay. JC says, I've read some of Chris's appellate briefing, and I know this argument has already been raised and denied, but maybe that's a little bit of a spoiler. I don't know. If you want to go in and trim that out, feel free, Erica. But here's this part. The transcript, JC says, does not include Miranda warnings. I understand that the claim is that he was read his rights before the transcript, but I find that unavailing. If you read Shaky's transcript, in quotes, they begin and end with identical questions, except Shaky was advised of his rights. It seems bizarre that they would be consistent on all administrative admonishments, but forget Chris's Miranda rights.
Yeah, and he signed a Miranda waiver, but it's not included in the statement. But again, you'll get a little more insight into that. A lot more insight into that actually on Sunday.
Okay. Charla says, an observation, the transcripts appear to just be statements. Says so at the top. I went down a rabbit hole on what Q&A statements are, as referenced on Chris Bynum's website. A transcript presented as such would have to have something to authenticate it, like a recording, right? Doesn't make all that much difference, but explains why the wording is police speak instead of normal talk.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, it looks like a transcript. It reads like a transcript, but there's nothing to back it up. You can't verify, because we've done that in many cases where I have a transcript of a confession or of a statement or of a witness interview, and I feel like something's fishy, so I'll get a hold of the recording and then compare it. And remember in I believe in Sandy Melgar's case, there was parts of the transcript that were from Sandy's interrogation where the transcript said she said one thing, but when you actually listen to it, that's not what she said. And that's why those exist. So you can fact check those. Yeah. So I don't know. That's why I keep like to call it a transcript. It looks like a transcript, but it's clearly not a transcript. It could be, again, just based on the fact that it's 2 hours long and there's nowhere in there where it says, well, hang on, let's take a break. Right. It didn't take 2 hours to say those words, and they weren't sitting in silence for an hour and 40 minutes of that.
Yeah.
So it's a statement typed up to look like a transcript. I don't know. It's a hybrid,
never seen Bob. It's just a hybrid. Nothing wrong with that. Just a little pinch of this, a little sprinkling of that.
Much like several elements of this case, I have never seen anything like this before in any case I've ever looked at, including the cases we've covered on the show or cases just that I've researched for in other capacities or as for screening. I've never seen anything like this before.
How about that?
Usually that's when I'm looking through a case file. I'm like, oh, good. There's a transcript. Good. Let me get the audio. And this is the first one. That was one of the first questions I said to Dr. Jackson when we were looking over this case back in December or January when we were in our office. I said, okay, oh, good. There's transcripts. Do you have the audio? And she said, there is no audio. I'm like, that's impossible. There is audio. If they're telling you there's not audio, there is audio because there's a transcript. She's like, no, there isn't audio. It wasn't recorded. I was like, that can't be true. But it turns out it is true.
Ugh.
Yeah. How about that? Natalie and Veronica say getting high on embalming fluid. What? Is that a thing?
I don't know. Is it? That's not.
That is a thing. Yeah,
I've heard that
thing.
Too.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard that
was
too.
a thing.
I'd heard that before. Yeah. Iva says, and this is very interesting. I saved this almost for last. I've got one more thing after this, but Iva says there was, and I paraphrased just a tiny bit, Iva, but this is such a great comment. There was something significant going on with the lights in the house where the murders happened. In each of Larry's statements, he mentions something about the lights after the shootings. I noticed it because it was so random. And now they asked both Chris and the other guy whose statement we heard today about the lights. That's really weird. As if they had a significant piece of evidence on or around the light switch, but then decided they'll just charge Chris and never went any further with the lights thing after having maybe implanted in Larry's 12-year-old mind. I haven't been following closely enough. Do the crime scene photos exist where one could check to see what the hell is going on with the lights or the light switch?
Nothing I've seen that would show. I think on that line of thinking, you'd be looking for like fingerprint dusting marks, which I didn't see any on there. So there's that possibility. Maybe they got a good latent off the light switch and like, oh, that's our thing. But I don't think that's what's going on here. Personally, and it's just my feelings on it. Because if they had a good latent fingerprint on the light switch and that fingerprint came back and say matched Chris Bynum, they wouldn't need Larry's statement to make that more powerful. It's plenty powerful enough.
You're right.
Right. So I think it's more like what Zach caught about the VFW. It's kind of an innocuous detail, but it's a consistent detail from Larry. And that's why, so because I feel like information that was gathered prior to Chris coming in was fed to Chris for this interview. That's just how that's what I think is going on here. Just my thoughts. So the fact that Chris says it isn't significant to me because Chris said a lot of shit that.
Well, I think they ask him. I don't think it's as much. I don't think Iva is saying as much about what Chris says. It's more just about the fact that the cops are clearly looking for a specific answer by asking this question.
Yeah, and I think what that is in all reality, if you go back to Larry's original statements and what he says later in his deposition, he didn't see anything. He really didn't hear. He heard some voices. He heard the shots, and he remembered hearing them say, "Turn the lights off," and leave. To me, that is a reason that if what he said on the scene that night, right when the cops are like, "What did you see? What did you hear?" I heard voices. I heard gunshots. I heard him say, "Shut off the lights," and left. That's reasonable to me. It's innocuous to me. It's something that rings true that he probably actually heard. And so I think the detectives had that. The one thing that Larry did actually say was that he heard him say, "Turn the lights off." So then they want that to make its way into the statement, because now you've got, because this is such a loose, weak, pathetic case that like I need something to connect it, and that's the strength is demonstrates the strength of this case, that the big strong connection they have is the kid at the scene saying he heard him say turn off the lights, and Chris said they turned the lights off before they left. Right there it is. There's your connection. So I think that's what's going on here. I think the thing that was significant about the lights was it was the one thing that Larry actually said before he started getting coerced and manipulated. It was the one thing he said that he actually heard somebody say that night.
But yeah, if it's so tenuous, I mean, this is a little bit different because it's not about an actual ear witness or a human person saying something that they witnessed or heard. But it does feel, again, reminiscent of kind of in some ways the mother of all false confessions, Jay, when it's like, and what was going on with the turn signal or the windshield wiper? What was anything about that? Like when you sort of feel them picking for their little, like, here's this gem, here's this little connector. Yeah. It feels so obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. He said she was kicking and kicked the turn signal lever off. It's like, oh, now how could he possibly have made up that little detail? Things like that. Yeah.
Okay. And then the last thing I have from our post is Colin asking, do we have Chris's account of what he actually did that night? And does he claim to have any knowledge of the murders? Like in the honest truth of not being asked. I'm sure we'll get to these things, but
yeah, as far as we'll get into, I've got to see what was actually covered and testified to in the transcripts, what he says about that. As far as what actually happened, the murders, no, he doesn't. I can say that with full confidence. He's maintained he didn't have anything to do with it, doesn't know anything about it. No clue, no connection whatsoever. And Susan just posted in the YouTube chat. She had put in the Facebook, but it was too late. It was too late for us to gather for the episode. But she wants to know why the fact that no interviews were recorded wasn't raised as an issue in the courts during the trial. There was no law in place that said they had to be recorded, so there's no issue that can be made about it. I mean, you can you can make suggestions if the judge will allow it. A defense attorney can say, and you didn't record these. So wouldn't you think you'd record? You could try to plant that idea into the jurors' minds that things weren't recorded. But the problem with this one is Chris signed it. So like, where are you going to go with that? You're at that point, you're just drawing more attention to it, because whatever this transcript, whatever this statement is that was typed out and written, at the bottom of it, Chris signed it and said that it was true. So, how much energy do you want to spend in front of the jury talking about, well, it wasn't recorded, maybe this isn't what he said? Then all the prosecutor comes up and says, whose signature is that right there? That's where he said that's what he said. And you're not going to put Chris on the stand. You're not going to put the defendant on the stand to refute it. So it's a no-win situation.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking that to its conclusion, because I think that's a fair question to ask, Susan. That's not crazy at all. And like, Susan's also using the logic that many of us now know to use, which is, why in hell would it ever be okay not to record something if you have the technology to do so?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's still not law. I'm sure there are some departments or municipalities and agencies where it is a rule, but there's still no law, and that's something, as far as criminal justice reform. How about let's do that? It's 2025. How about a rule that any interview has to be recorded? Because we passed law that they have to wear body cams and dash cams, all these different things that have to be on. We should make it so this could be raised in court. Like, if you don't record the interview, it doesn't count. If you don't record from beginning to end when a suspect's in custody, I mean, hell, I can do that. I can send my 15-year-old students out for a day and tell them you have to record every single minute of everything you're doing, and they can do it no problem.
Yeah.
Right. The technology is not expensive. It's not hard to come by. It could be done now. But in 2000, there were just there was a lot of departments that just didn't record stuff.
Well, and it really goes to show the trust and the power that I'm not saying anything new here, but the trust and the power that we instill in our police departments, where, you can say that his signature is on the bottom of the page, but if there's no recordings, someone could have been holding a gun to his head. But you're in a catch-22 because you're not going to put your client on the stand, and that's the only person who could testify that happened, if it was even going to be believed. So it's still totally bonkers, because it's like, okay, cool, you got a signature. How? I don't even know how you got a signature. I don't even know that he signed it. I didn't even see his hand sign it. You could have forged his signature. I have no proof of that whatsoever. The proof is we trust the police. That is the proof. The proof is we trust the police. And that can be a very scary place if you are investigating wrongful convictions.
And that is a perfect segue to end this episode and into what you're going to hear on Sunday, because when we do get to hear Chris talk about what was going on in that interrogation room that day, there's an element of what you're talking about that literally terrified me when I read it. And I sat back and thought about it for a minute. It scared the living shit about me. It scared the living shit out of me. And with that being said, make sure you tune in on Sunday to hear all about it. And we'll talk to you guys again next week.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
All right. We can stop on our audio. Speaking of next week, Zach I have conferences. You guys get to hear this is how the sausage is made, guys.
Woo!
I have conferences next week on Wednesday and Thursday. So the only day I could record is on Tuesday. Are you available on Tuesday?
Yes. Yeah, I should be.
Okay. So
yeah, I mean, I can let you know. In the morning. I'd have to double check, but yeah, Tuesday should be fine for me.
Okay. It'll probably be just you and me, and then we'll see what kind of ailment Janet has.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Because she can't do Tuesdays and I can't do Wednesday.
I like that the translation of what Zach just said means I need to ask Michelle.
Right.
No, I just need to make sure. Well, no, because Mondays and Wednesdays I have football practice that I coach, but Tuesdays and Wednesdays Sagan has soccer practice, but I don't have anything to do with that. And then I have a charity event on Wednesday, and I have a show on Thursday also. So next week.
Tuesday, maybe it was meant to be.
So let's let me know about Tuesday. So guys,
I'm emceeing the pink toilet event at Watermark on Wednesday.
What is a pink toilet event?
It's a charity for breast cancer, and they make people sit on pink toilets until they raise enough money to get off the toilet.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like fun.
So the Berrien County Cancer Service is running it, and I got asked to MC it. So
very cool.
Right on.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And all right, and for all you guys, if you're ever wondering how to make sausage, that's how you make it.
Yeah.
Very possibly next week's live stream will be on Tuesday, or there won't be one. We'll see. We'll see what the schedules are going to look like.
Well, I most
Bob
likely
could
can be in
you
person
can
as
pop
well.
in, Bob. You could pop in, Bob, and take questions from people. It might be a 15-minute episode, but you could
might do some
engage
kind of
with
stream.
them. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm going to end this live stream though right now because
right.
shockingly I have to pee again.
All right,
So,
everybody. That is
live
shocking.
stream. See you guys.